When we talk about sports cars, our minds immediately think Porsche, BMW, Toyota, and Ford Mustang. But this wasn't always the case. In the 1960s, the Jaguar E-type was rated very highly and regarded as one of the best sports cars ever made, and it still retains its fitness more than 60 years later. It's one of the most renowned automobiles of all time, a 1960s classic that defined the decade and is still as popular over 60 years later. But what is it about the E-type that makes it so unique? In today's video, we're going to be looking at the 1960s Jaguar E-type. We'll be looking at anything from exterior to interior to engines. Buckle in your seatbelt, because it's going to be one hell of a ride. When it comes to cult icons, adjectives flow thick and fast, making it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction. One of these automobiles is the Jaguar E-type, which was introduced into the Pantheon of Motoring almost as soon as the first journalists saw it. The white two-door sports car, which was sitting on an amazing animal print wall-to-wall, had a tall hood that belied its size. The public was ecstatic, to the point where a second car was driven from Britain to Switzerland, while Sir William Lyons, the company's creator, was already taking orders for the new big cat. Even the Italians, who were known for putting together some of the most beautiful cars in the world, were taken aback by the E-initial type's effect. One Italian in particular praised Jaguar's new two-seater design. This Italian was none other than Enzo Ferrari, founder of Ferrari. The XKE, as it was branded in the United States, was declared to be the most beautiful car in the world by none other than Enzo Ferrari, despite early reliability concerns that pushed the racing version's launch date back to 1962. The E-type proved useful on racecourses all around the world, particularly with the 12 lightweight chassis. Away from the racetrack, the first E-type, known as the S1, was produced in sustainably bigger quantities, with approximately 40,000 cars leaving the Coventry factory between 1961 and 1968. That number included all possible combinations, including the less fluid 2+2. While the E-type was produced until 1975, the S1 is by far the most distinctive, as later models removed the headlamp covers and adopted wider fender flares, which messed with the original shape of the vehicle. This is one of the reasons why the initial edition is also the most expensive, with prices growing year after year. In terms of exterior appearance, the E-type's massive front hood dominates the shape of the car, making it appear noticeably longer than the XK150 it replaced. In reality, the E-type has a wheelbase that is 6-inch shorter as well as 6-inch lower roofline than the XK150. Sir William Lyons enhanced Malcolm Sayers' design, which is comparable to Jaguar's D-type and the road-going XK-SS. While the latter is a real race car for the road, the XKE is more at home on the interstate, effortlessly devouring kilometers and, to be honest, gallons of petrol. While the Roadster is an unpleasant sight and equally inefficient in terms of aerodynamics, with the nose raising at speeds beyond 90 miles per hour, the coupe is simply more appealing to the eye. The 2+2 coupe, which was launched near the conclusion of the S1's production run and had a rather lumpy roofline that messed up the overall look, isn't included. The covered headlamps, one of the most important parts of the front fascia, were removed very late in the S1's production run, before the so-called S15 went into production. Only a few of those models were produced, but they were a foundation for the E-stylistic type's progression. The coupe's design was almost unaltered by the initial racing variants, which were put to test at Le Mans in 1962. However, the E-type was dramatically altered in 1963, with the lightweight chassis receiving a low-drag body that was further refined by the likes of Peter Linder and Peter Lumsden, as the car remained relevant until the mid-1960s. When sitting next to an E-type, one might not feel very reassured about the amount of space available within the vehicle. On the inside, however, things are a little different. as the monocoque gives impression of being quite big and is well equipped for its time period. The massive central console that holds the majority of vital gauges and switches dominates the broad dashboard. The speedometer and rev counter are located behind the big 3-spoke steering wheel, with the former ending at an impressive top speed of 160 miles per hour at the time. In all honesty, no E-type in street guise has ever gone that fast. However, while putting it through its paces, one magazine got very close to reaching that speed. Regardless of the fact that a not-so-slender figure could find the bucket seats a little short, the leather that covers the majority of the interior of the cabin creates a pleasant ambiance, that of a genuine grand tourer that enjoys cruising for miles on end. The E-type's first engine was a monstrous 3.8-liter straight-six, but the 4.2-liter, which debuted in 1964, is the one that gets the most accolades. The initial engine produced 265 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, which is the same as the horsepower of the 4.2-liter engine. However, the 4.2-liter engine outperformed the 3.8-liter in terms of torque, with 283 pound-feet compared to only 240 pound-feet for the 3.8-liter. All of these figures suggest that the car could accelerate from 0 to 62 in about 7.5 seconds. It could also keep going until it hit a top speed of 150 miles per hour. The E-type was first only available with a Moss 4-speed manual gearbox, with the 1964 4.2-liter adding an all-synchro unit. A 3-speed automatic was eventually introduced, but only for the 2+2 variant and only in 1966. Reduced noise levels and the inherent advantages of a synchro mesh gearbox were two advantages of the gearbox featured on the 4.2. A diaphragm spring was used in the clutch of the 4.2-liter engine, similar to what was used in latter 3.8-liter automobiles. The difference is owing to the increased pedal pressure on the larger engine variant, which is related to the installation of stiffer springs designed to take the extra torque. Both the 3.8-liter and the 4.2-liter have the same Dunlop all-disc brake system, although the latter has the added benefit of being servo-assisted at any time, giving it a more linear braking sensation. Dunlop's 185, 15 SP41, and Pirelli's 185 VR15 radial ply tires replaced the original 6.4 by 15-inch Dunlop RS5 rubber-mounted on beautiful Borinani spokes. The front and rear independent suspension, as well as the rack and pinion steering, remained constant throughout the 7 years of manufacture. Despite its popularity among the 1960s showbiz set, the E-type was not particularly pricey by today's standards. That was, in fact, part of its charm. It cost £2,160 when it first came out, which was around half the price of an Aston Martin DB4 and a third of the price of a Ferrari 250 GT. Taking inflation into account, that's nearly £47,000 now, or roughly the price of a Jaguar F-type. Now, if you'd paid £2,000 for an E-type in 1961 and kept it up to date, you'd have a massive profit if you sell. Prices have risen dramatically in the previous decade, albeit slightly in the last year or two, and the most popular versions can now cost more than £300,000. Series 1 examples are the most valuable, especially in uncommon outside latch configurations, with roadsters fetching slightly more than coupes. S2 roadsters sell for around £100,000, 2+2s for $50,000 to $60,000, and S3s for around £30,000. What do you think about this vintage automobile? Let us know in the comments section.